My name is Mia Jones, and I just turned 16. I guess you could say I have always been the smart kid in the room. Actually, not just smart, I have been a bit of a science genius since I was tiny. By the time I hit my mid-teens, I had already collected more than 20 different awards for science. I just won another big competition, and that shiny new trophy was the final piece of the puzzle that let me skip a whole grade. I remember standing there at the awards ceremony, feeling the weight of the trophy in my hands and the bright lights on my face. A reporter looked at me with a lot of respect and said my achievements at such a young age were really something. Then he asked me what I was planning to do next. I was so excited that I just blurted it out right there. I told him that I had decided to drop out of school. The room went dead silent for a second before everyone started whispering and murmuring to each other. They looked totally shocked. I didn't care though. I just turned around and walked out with my head held high. With a profile like mine, I was only one research paper away from getting into the Space Up astronomical research program. Why waste time on boring classes when I could be studying the stars, right? Well, my parents didn't exactly see it my way. They were really sad to think that I wouldn't graduate. After a lot of arguing and back and forth, we finally reached a compromise. They agreed to let me move to Quebec, Canada, to stay with my grandparents for a year. The catch was that I still had to enroll in a local school there. And just like that, there I was in Canada. I remember pulling up to my grandparents' farm, feeling the fresh air, and thinking I was finally ready to make my dreams come true. But as soon as I stepped out of the car, my heart sank. There was a huge, angry crowd standing right in front of the house. I could hear people screaming and cursing, and it looked like they were even breaking things. It was terrifying. My grandparents looked so glum and defeated. They spotted me and quietly signaled for me to come in through the back way so the angry crowd wouldn't see me. Once we were safely inside, they told me how those people were actually parents of children who had gotten food poisoning after attending Riverside School's summer camp. The real problem was that my grandparents' farm had provided the food, and now the school was threatening to file a lawsuit. They didn't even seem open to negotiation at all. I picked up the notice of lawsuit from the table, feeling the rough paper in my hand. I just couldn't believe it. I told them this couldn't be happening, and that there must be some kind of solution. But my grandparents just shook their heads at me with such sadness. I wasn't about to sit around and watch my grandparents' life work go down the drain. If the school wouldn't negotiate with them, then I'd have to deal with the person in charge myself. I marched straight up to the principal's house. Even though my heart was racing a bit, I didn't let it show. I gave the door a firm knock and waited. A woman opened it, looking me over like I was some kind of annoying bug. She snapped at me, asking if she was supposed to know who I was. I wasn't intimidated. I kept my cool, then introduced myself as Mia Jones, the granddaughter of Miss Peterson. The second she heard my name, her attitude did a total 180. She looked shocked and asked if I was the Mia Jones from New York. When I confirmed it, she actually invited me in. I followed her, thinking it was pretty weird that the principal's wife already knew me. We sat down, and she got straight to the point, telling me she'd withdraw the charges just for me. For a second, I thought this was going to be easy. I told her I was glad we could handle it. But then she got this annoying smirk on her face. She called me sweet child in that fake nice way and told me she doesn't do charity. She told me she knew exactly how smart I was. Then came the catch. She'd only drop the lawsuit if I made her daughter the #1 student in school. Basically, I had to swap my test scores with her. Honestly, I thought the whole idea was insane and totally unethical. But I looked at the situation. If I said no, the farm was toast. I wasn't going to let that happen, so I gave a reluctant nod and told her she had a deal. Right after that, I was led to meet her daughter. I was fully prepared to deal with a bratty princess. But when the maid opened the door to her room, I was actually surprised. This girl, Eliana, or Elle as she told me to call her, she seemed surprisingly chill and was all smile. She immediately apologized for her mother being so intense. She explained that since her dad is the principal, her mom is basically obsessed with her being perfect at school. Elle hesitated for a moment, like she was weighing whether to tell me more. Then she mentioned this girl named Nora. Apparently, Nora is the daughter of Elle's dad's ex-girlfriend, and she is some kind of academic superstar. It turns out Elle's mom was totally paranoid that Elle would look bad compared to her. She was worried her husband might start favoring this other girl over his own daughter. I thought about it for a second. Honestly, my main goal for coming to Canada was just to wrap up my astronomical research. I already have a mountain of trophies back home, so I really didn't need another A on my I gave Elle a confident smile and told her to relax, promising her that I would make sure she became the star student of the school before she knew it. The next morning, I headed to school with Elle, and I have to say, Riverside School was nothing like my stuffy, high-pressure academy back in New York. The place looked so ancient and calm, with a real sense of history in the stone walls. Elle introduced me to her group of friends, and they all seemed genuinely welcoming. For a second, I actually thought that being here might be great. To keep my side of the deal, I started carrying out the plan. I would whisper the answers to Elle when the teachers called on her, and we quietly swapped our assignments and homework every single day. It didn't take long for Elle to climb all the way to the top of the class rankings. On the flip side, I ended up right at the bottom. I couldn't help but laugh to myself. Elle's mom definitely wasn't kidding when she said her daughter's grades were bad. Honestly, being the worst student didn't bother me much. My mind was focused on something else entirely: the school's amazing astronomy tower. When I first saw it, it felt like I was looking at a piece of heaven. I stood outside the astronomy club room, peeking in and watching all the equipment and activities with pure excitement. Suddenly, a sharp voice behind me asked what I was doing there. I turned around and saw this girl who looked really confident and a bit intense. I figured out pretty quickly that this was Nora, the same girl Elle had mentioned before. She was about our age and was the astronomy club's president. I held up my application in front of this girl. Then I introduced myself as Mia and told her straight up that I wanted to be part of her team because I had a ton of experience in studying astronomy, and well, I didn't even get to finish my sentence. She just snatched the paper out of my hand, cutting me off completely. She told me to stop blabbering and pointed out that my grades were total trash. Then she looked me in the eye and said they had a strict no idiots allowed policy. I wasn't about to back down, so I told her to at least give me a chance to prove myself. She just sniggered at me, acting like it was a joke, and handed me an astronomy test. Honestly, it was easy peasy. I breezed through the whole thing and got every single answer right in just 10 minutes. But instead of welcoming me into the club, she accused me of cheating. I was so annoyed. It became pretty obvious that Nora didn't just have a problem with me. She seemed to absolutely despise Elle too. She was like a hawk, waiting for any tiny excuse to get us into trouble. During a class test, she suddenly stood up and announced to the teacher that we were cheating. I barely had time to process what she said before Elle jumped up. Elle told the teacher that she was just trying to help me and said she was sorry. I was floored. Who was helping whom? I was the one doing all the work. The teacher was furious. He looked at me and said I had a lot of nerve, then told me my test was suspended right then and there. I could feel the whole class staring at me with these disapproving looks. And honestly, it felt terrible. I've never been disrespected like that by my peers before. I just couldn't believe how Elle could stand there and tell such a lie so calmly. As I walked down the corridor afterward, I was fuming. Now that I was labeled a cheater, I knew there was no way I'd ever get into the astronomy club. But I wasn't going to let that stop. If I couldn't get in through the front door, I'd find another way. I waited until it got dark, then I sneaked into the janitor's room and managed to grab the key to the observation tower. Finally, I was inside. It was amazing to be able to study my favorite constellation without anyone bothering me. Since Montreal is close to the North Pole, the night sky here is so clear that I could see all the stars. I figured at this rate, I'd finish my research way ahead of schedule and be able to leave all this childish drama behind. But one night, while I was busy taking notes, the door suddenly swung open. I heard a guy's voice shout out, asking who was there. My heart nearly stopped. I scrambled to grab my papers and jumped out through the emergency exit window just in time. I kept wondering who that guy was and what he was doing there so late at night. The next morning, I had to push my way through a noisy crowd of students gathered in the hallway. I looked up at the school's pinboard and my heart skipped a beat. There was a big announcement from the astronomy club warning everyone that outsiders were strictly forbidden from using the observatory. It even said there would be severe punishment once they found the person who trespassed recently. I knew right then that the guy from the night before must have snitched on me. Later in the biology lab, I found out exactly who that snitch was. His name was Brandon, and he was the new transfer student at school. It turns out he is also the grandson of the legendary Sir Edward Foster, the founder of Space Up. It is such a shame that someone related to a genius like that turned out to be such a smug jerk. But of course, that didn't stop all the girls at school from going absolutely crazy over him. The most annoying part was that he kept coming over to my desk to talk to me about astronomy. I was so confused. I mean, doesn't everyone else here just see me as some insignificant kid with bad grades? I was pretty annoyed and tried my best to just ignore him. But he wouldn't take the hint. Then, Brandon held out a piece of paper and asked me if it belonged to me. I took one look and realized it was a part of my actual astronomy research. I must have dropped it in the tower when I was escaping the night before. I quickly snatched the paper from his hand, feeling my face get hot. I couldn't stop wondering how he even knew it was mine in the first place. Feeling totally flustered and worried about being caught, I quickly made an excuse and got out of there as fast as I could. I spent the entire literature class in a complete daze. My mind raced with nerve. If the school found out I was the one who trespassed into the observatory, I'd be facing an instant suspension. There went my dreams of finishing my research. I was deep in thought when the sound of the whole class bursting into applause snapped me back to reality. It turned out they were all praising an excellent essay about constellations. My heart stung a little because I knew those were my words, but in this classroom, it was officially known as L's essay. Then things took a turn for the worse. The teacher cleared his throat to read the absolute worst essay in the class. It was something ridiculous about Justin Bieber being a favorite star, and how the writer wished he was her husband. The whole room erupted in laughter. I just sighed, knowing exactly whose name was at the top of that paper. The teacher looked straight at me and told me I really ought to learn a thing or two from my friend L. I glanced over at her and felt a surge of anger. She had this smug look on her face and was actually joining in with the others to mock me. I couldn't tell if she was genuinely that thick to write such a bad essay, or if she had done it on purpose, just to humiliate me. When I got home later that day, I found Elle waiting for me on the porch, looking like she wanted to apologize. I wasn't in the mood for games. I told her flat out that I'd kept my end of the bargain, and it was time for her mom to do the same. I demanded that the lawsuit against my grandparents be dismissed immediately, or I wouldn't help her with a single question on her final exam. Elle tried to negotiate, telling me her mom was working on it, and reminded me that I was leaving in a year anyway. Then she dropped a bombshell. She knew I was the one who snuck into the observatory. She told me that if I wanted to leave this town peacefully, I had to help her get together with Brandon. I was confused. I asked her what their relationship had to do with me. She explained that Brandon was so impressed by her astronomy essay. I rolled my eyes out of my head when she claimed my work as hers. He wanted to go on a date to discuss it further. Since she knew absolutely nothing about the stars, she had a plan. She showed me her AirPods and told me I had to stay on the line during the date to feed her the answers to any questions he asked. She promised that if they became official, she'd buy me that expensive telescope I was always talking about. When she struggled to remember the name, I couldn't help but shout out Celestron. With excitement, she really knew my weak spot. I figured one more deal wouldn't hurt, so I agreed. That weekend, they went for a walk in the park while I sat at home. I was eavesdropping on everything through my phone. I heard Brandon mention how impressed he was with her passion for the stars, and asked why she hadn't joined the astronomy club. Elle told him she was just too busy with her studies and piano practice. Then Brandon brought up the black hole, Sagittarius A, which I had written about in the essay. He said she seemed to have done a lot of research on it and asked her to tell him more. I had to think fast to keep her cover from blowing. Although Elle seemed completely frantic while I was feeding her all those scientific facts through the phone, the date actually went pretty smoothly. But there was one weird thing. The more Brandon and I talked, even with Elle acting as a middleman, the more I realized just how much we had in common. It felt strange, but even though I wasn't the one sitting across from him, I started to feel a real connection with him. I honestly thought everything was going great for them, but I was wrong. A few days later, Elle came charging at me in a total fit of rage. She told me that Brandon had actually turned her down after she confessed her feelings. She was fuming and demanded that I go talk to him to find out exactly why he rejected her. I was so confused and asked her why she didn't just ask him herself. She just tossed her hair and told me that because she's Eliana Robinson, she doesn't ask such embarrassing questions. So once again, I was the one stuck making the embarrassing move. It got worse when she insisted that I call her and keep the line open so she could eavesdrop on the whole conversation. Gosh, she is so bossy. I ended up dragging Brandon to a quiet spot on the rooftop. I felt super awkward, but I had my phone secretly on a call with Elle in my pocket so she could follow along. I decided to just get straight to the point and asked him why he had rejected Elle. Brandon looked a bit shy for a second and then told me it was because he liked someone else. I was genuinely surprised. I asked him why he would even bother hanging out with her if he had feelings for someone else. He looked me right in the eyes and said that only by going out with Elle could he actually talk to the person he really liked. Then he looked a bit disappointed and asked me why I didn't recognize him. I was absolutely stunned. I quickly ended the call, hoping Elle hadn't caught on to what was happening. I couldn't believe it. Had he known I was the one behind Elle's words the whole time? As it turned out, Brandon had actually met me years ago at a city ranking contest when we were both in the 6th grade. I had actually beaten him and won first prize back then. He told me he'd never met a kid smarter than him in astronomy before. The moment he saw me at this school, he recognized me instantly. He just couldn't figure out why my grades were suddenly so terrible. He told me he had been trying to talk to me, but he felt sad because I only ever gave him the cold shoulder. I started to feel a huge wave of guilt. I explained that I was only ignoring him because I thought he was the snitch who told the school I had snuck into the observatory. But then he dropped another truth bomb. It was Nora. She had been there that night too, and was the one who reported me. Then Brandon looked at me, really curious, and asked why a genius like me was doing Elle's homework. I decided to trust him and told him all about the secret contract I had with Mrs. Robinson to save my grandparents' farm. I also apologized for being so insensitive. I was not thinking about his feelings when I agreed to help Elle on their date. Brandon got quiet and thought about it seriously for a moment. Finally, he told me to follow him because there was something else I needed to know. Brandon took me straight to see Nora. At first, she looked at me with that same unwelcoming stare I had grown used to. But as soon as Brandon explained the truth about my secret deal with the principal's wife, her whole attitude shifted instantly. She looked like everything finally clicked for her. She told us she should have known a girl like Elle couldn't actually make that kind of academic progress. She sounded disgusted that Elle and her mom were deceiving everyone all over again. Then Nora shared something that made my blood run cold. She had been secretly investigating the food poisoning case on her own, because on the day of the summer camp she had actually seen Mrs. Robinson and Elle acting incredibly shady in the school kitchen. I was so confused and a bit defensive. I asked her why I should even trust her, especially since Elle had told me Nora just had it in for her. I thought maybe she was just trying to ruin Elle's life. Nora just groaned, asking why she would even bother doing that. Then she told me that while I was defending my best friend, Elle was currently busy trying to embarrass me in front of the entire school. She pulled out her phone and showed me a video. My jaw dropped. There was Elle, sitting in the lecture hall in front of a giant screen that read Maya's grandpa poisoned. We rushed over to the hall and found a huge crowd gathered. Elle was standing there, telling everyone that my grandparents were the ones who served the spoiled food. She even claimed that I was a total fraud who had no shame. She accused that I copied her work, cheating on tests. I tried to steal Brandon away from her while they were dating. I realized then that she must have figured out Brandon liked me. But instead of talking to me like a normal person, she decided to destroy my family's reputation. I was so angry I could barely breathe. Before I could even step forward to defend myself, Brandon took action. He pressed the control and replaced Elle's screen with a video of me winning the Young Minds Intelligence contest. The room started buzzing immediately. I heard people whispering in shock, recognizing me from the show and wondering if that geniusess Mia was really me. Elle's face went completely pale as the crowd started to doubt her. That's when Nora stepped up, snatched the microphone right out of Elle's hand, and went for the kill. She told everyone that it was clear I wasn't dumb. Then she turned the focus to the poisoning. She asked the crowd if it wasn't a bit strange that only Elle and her mother never got sick that day. She revealed the truth right there. They were the ones who poisoned the food just to blame my grandparents. Then a new clip played on the screen showing Elle's mom talking secretly to a man. Nora explained that the whole plan was to ruin my grandparents' business so Mrs. Robinson could hire that man to buy our farm for a dirt cheap price. Suddenly, a booming, angry voice cut through the room. It was the principal. He had been standing at the door the whole time and saw everything. He looked absolutely furious as he shouted for everyone to get out. Once the room cleared, leaving only me, Elle, Nora, and the principal, Elle lost it. She screamed at Nora, calling her the daughter of a cheater. But Nora didn't flinch. She told Elle to stop playing dumb, revealing that Mrs. Robinson had lied years ago to ruin the wedding between the principal and Nora's mom. She even dropped the biggest bombshell of all. Elle wasn't even the principal's daughter. Mrs. Robinson had lied about that too, just to force him to stay with her. Mr. Robinson's stepped right between them, using his arms to split them up. His face was shocked. It turns out he already knew Nora's mom had been wrongfully framed and hadn't cheated on him at all. That's why he always tried to make it up to Nora. But learning that Elle wasn't his daughter was one big bombshell. After he realized what his wife and daughter had done, he decided to resign. I watched as he walked away and placed his resignation letter on the table, looking like a man who just needed a fresh start. He eventually made amends with Nora's mom, and they are even giving their relationship another go. Once the whole truth came out, Elle and her mother just left without a trace. My grandparents were completely cleared of those food poisoning allegations, and now their business is booming again. I can't help but give a big grin every time I see them happy. Thanks to Brandon and Nora, I finally got all the data I needed to finish my research project with flying colors. I remember sitting there on my bed with a suitcase right next to me, thinking back to how I was so ready to just quit high school and go off to pursue my dreams alone. Just kidding. I am actually just packing for a short trip to Manhwa National Park to see the Northern Lights with Brandon and Nora. In the end, I have decided to stay and finish high school here after all. I realized I can still chase my passion for astronomy, and it is even better when I have my two soulmates right there by my side. I have learned that being a genius does not mean you have to do everything on your own. Sometimes, the greatest discoveries aren't found in the stars, but in the people who stand by you when things get dark. My journey is just beginning, and I am finally exactly where I am supposed to be.